everyone. Mike Evans and Jason Fullerton here on Tuesday, the 9th of December for this week's episode of No Risk. Jason, what's been happening this week, mate? Have you slowed down for the end of our calendar year?
Yeah, look, the romance of being a security risk and compliance consultant at this time of the year, I've been busy. Yeah, I've been real busy. On Monday morning, I was in court. Monday afternoon, I drove 5 hours to Port Macquarie to be with a client at a board meeting on Monday night. Tuesday, I drove back from Port Macquarie. Today, I left home at 6:30 this morning. Shortly, I'll be leaving to go to Wollongong to train some security guards in Wollongong about conflict management and some of those types of things and some of the modern day 2020 risks. So I should get home at about 11 o'clock tonight, and then I need to be on site, probably leave home about 4:30 tomorrow morning to be on site with a client at 5:30 a.m. To do a survey for a security risk assessment. So, yeah, things are a little bit chaotic at the moment, but I'm extremely grateful. I'm grateful for my clients. I'm grateful to be busy at this particular time. But, yeah, look, all the notions that being a security risk, running your own company, having an investigations company, etc., is the place to be type thing, and that certainly goes without considering that there needs to be some compromises. And I know many of your students are watching the show each week now and are looking to cut their teeth and join the industry as well. So, they need to acknowledge that it is diverse, and by way of diversity means your availability, needs to be really, really there for your clients.
Very much so, Jason. And were you in court on Monday as a expert witness?
Yes, I was. Yep.
And it was a governance issue, or?
No, it was a personal injury matter, dealing with the methods of which security were still before the court. So I won't discuss all of the matter at this particular point, because as you know, with these types of matters, sometimes even mid hearings, they can conciliate the matter and sign deeds of release, etc. So, but yeah, mate, it was a fairly complex matter. But once again, this whole concept of compliance and concept of security risk is not necessarily the fact that someone gets injured. It's always about what have you done to prepare that, to ensure that you've done as much as is reasonably practicable to keep people safe. You want no injuries? Don't operate your business. Don't trade.
That's true.
But it doesn't excuse your obligation to do as much as is reasonably practicable. Otherwise, you find yourself in the halls of justice, and they will make a determination on what your definition of reasonably practicable is and what their definition of reasonably practicable is.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Jason, because I've got a little video to show here with a question we've had this week from Ed. When I've finished the video, I'll get you to weigh in on it as well, and just
Sure.
Give me your point of view. So Ed's gone and done an investigator's course, and he enjoyed it. And what he's applied for another job with another company, and they've asked him to get a CAPI master license. Now, he works for another company in New South Wales as a subcontract investigator, and they haven't asked him to get a CAPI master license. So please forgive the spelling mistake you just saw there. Ed's license, so that's great, because if he wasn't, he could be fined $50,000 and his employer could be fined $100,000. So licensing is the first issue. That's really important. So when they ask you to get a master license, if you're going to go and work for that company, they're allowed to do that. And they have specific reasons for doing that from their own past experience. Now, the things that come into play here are the Fair Work and Reward obligations, spelt correctly, incorrectly spelt there, but that's supposed to say obligations, Australian taxation legislation, superannuation, workers' compensation, all those add up to common law liability, as Jason was just talking about in a personal injury matter. Now, awkward issues such as superannuation or annual leave or sick leave or overtime or payroll tax, holiday pay, licenses, training, stuff like that, add up over time. And regulators will have substantial fines for any company that doesn't comply with their tax or their fair work or their super. So what happens is the organisation says, well, if we're going to engage other investigators in our company, we want them to have their own master licence. So there's no argument about whether they're a subcontractor or they're an employee, should push come to shove over a matter of taxation, superannuation, workers' comp or something like that in 5 or 6 years' time. Because people make little friendly arrangements. And basically what they do is they say, I'll pay you cash, or I'll do this. You're only going to be working for 3 months while I'm away. And then on the first day of that 3 months, someone will get a severe back injury that's going to knock them out for the next 15 years. And that all just goes on a handshake, just goes out the window at that stage. So that's why organisations want you in investigations or security to have your own master licence. Now, the other organisation that doesn't want Ed to do that, they might be based in Victoria, but they will have a contract for Ed to sign saying, these are the rules of our engagement. You will be engaged on this basis or that basis. It might be a full-time employee and you'll be entitled to holiday pay and superannuation and annual leave, and all that will be in that contract. But if it's not, they will have some other kind of arrangement, for engagement B, because not everybody wants to be an employee. There are substantial benefits in just being a subcontractor. There's more freedom. So to allow for that, they will have a contract for that. So Ed would be given a contract how they want it, for him to review, get his lawyer to check it out, and then he could go ahead and sign that one. So New South Wales is the only state that affects Ed in that regard with the master licence. No other state has that master licence issue. They have firm licences and business licences and things like that, and they all relate to how many employees that security or investigation firm has. Now, if you could imagine a security company that supplies security guards to the airport or to defence facilities, they're going to have a large amount of security guards. So it's really important that they have their contracts and all their ducks in a row. And the master licence is usually used in those smaller ones, not so much the larger ones where they're mostly employees. But the thing to remember, Ed, is it's okay. You can get your master licence and you can have that and you can show them your master licence. People do. And the firm that asks you to do that, they're actually one of the 3 biggest in Australia, and a really great bunch of people. They really have a lot of work. So just because they asked you for that, don't see it as an impediment. And you didn't. I know that from your letter. And I know that from you as a student, Ed. You don't see it like that. But, see it as, well, I can get a master licence. That's no problem. That's what they want. I'll comply with what they want, tick their boxes. I will get their work. And you will find that they have some really excellent bullying, harassment, racial discrimination, sexual harassment, really serious stuff that you can handle. And I know, look, you only graduated from your course 8 months ago, but your coursework was really well done and you've got really good work ever since, and you've kept me up to date with that, and you can handle this moving forward. So I hope that answers your question. Jason, do you hold a master licence?
Yeah, I do, Mike. And look, this is quite commonplace in the security industry in New South Wales now, certainly, that a requirement of being engaged by a security company may be that you're required to keep a master license, etc. I'm just curious to know what Ed's tenure is as a private inquiry agent in New South Wales, but because I know that there is still provisional licensing requirements, etc., and it may exclude him from being a master license holder. But by the same token too, I understand the advantages about having this type of work dynamic between larger companies and their investigators. But yeah, the things that Ed would be required to look at is look at your tenure, look at your eligibility. Certainly, there will be a requirement for you to hold the necessary insurances etc., to make sure that you're meeting your obligations under the Private Inquiry Agents Act. But yeah, you're quite right, Mike. If they're a large company, if they have plenty of work, well, these are just some of the compromises you need to make it in our industry. And but by the same token, too, it doesn't, providing there's no restrictions on him from an exclusivity perspective that he only works for that company, there can be some significant advantages about having your own master license and your ability to be able to, one, secure direct work, which is obviously the best work because that's probably the most lucrative for everyone. But it would also provide that opportunity for him to perhaps get work with other companies as well. So having that sort of diversity of being the holder of a master license would certainly hold him in good stead.
Yep, that's correct. So I encourage people, once their 12 months is up in New South Wales with their provisional licence, look at getting that as soon as they possibly can, because it will open up those opportunities. And it's a bit like having a company. People trust it, and people, like to see that, especially the bigger clients. I'd rather have a client say to me, I want you to get a master license, and how about I pay you $35 cash? So I'd much rather have the former rather than the latter, because I know where the latter's going to go. There was an interesting one happened. I haven't got a screenshot of it in New South Wales overnight. Yesterday, a tenant complained about the state of the roof that they had in the house they were renting. So the owner of the house engaged a couple of contractors to spray the roof to clean it up. They went in and sprayed it, and the roof had asbestos in it. So it sprayed the whole neighbourhood with asbestos. And people have asked me, how does that affect insurance claims? What happens with that? Well, the homeowner would have 5 to 10 million public liability insurance on that house, maybe more, seeing that they're renting it out. So that public liability insurance is going to look at how the contractors were engaged, how they were checked for their experience, qualifications, and that sort of thing in roof cleaning, what risk assessment they made of the roof before they went and did it, what contracts were in place, if any, or was it just the cheapest job available on Gumtree? All these things come into play with this sort of thing in relation to insurance claims. So this would be a general insurance claim. And if everything's kosher, the cleanup bill they estimated for cleaning this asbestos up is going to be in the vicinity of $500,000. So the insurance would cover it if that landlord is insured. That will cover it. The neighbours will, obviously be upset about the interruption to whatever. The risk that happens if he's got elderly neighbours with breathing problems or asthma or something like the young children with asthma, that could even make it more expensive with their medical treatment. So that sort of thing is a governance and compliance issue for a landlord, and that landlord may have several homes, who knows? So these are the sort of things that we talk about in here, is that risk and that governance. But again, I'm not selling insurance, but general insurance is really good to have on your home and contents in relation to something that you're aware of it. It's not your fault. The cleaners made the mess, but, 2 people had their dogs covered in asbestos and that looked like they'd been snowed on. That happened.
Look, I was just going to say, Mike, that an implied term of any insurance policy, and this is important for all those business owners out there, all these guys that are looking to get master licenses and operate independently, is that an implied term of any insurance policy, remember this, is also that you are going to comply with the law that governs the area of which you are working. And part of that law also includes the Work Health and Safety Act and other occupational and health and safety legislation in the different jurisdictions. There is an implied term of any insurance policy that you're complying with that. So it's important to know that just holding the insurance policy alone, whilst it has some protection, it doesn't exclude your obligation to comply with any modern law that applies to the work of which you do.
That's right. And asbestos, that's a minefield, that one. So you can always find out if you have got asbestos in your home or on your roof. If it's an older home over probably 35, 40 years old, just get a consultant in and they'll check that out for you. Most people only discover it when they're doing renovations, and that's a bad surprise because it's going to hold up those renovations for quite a long time. Now, one of the ones that's...
Take it from someone who knows. I did a renovation on a 100-year-old Queenslander. Asbestos is very expensive to get rid of.
It is to get rid of properly.
Yes.
Now, this one's been going on for a couple of weeks now. Now, she's gone missing and she could well be deceased, and I'm not taking this lightly, but this is a really common one. It's so common they have a word for it, and in policing and insurance it's called pseudocide. So what happened to the person that disappeared? I've investigated a lot of these, and they're really interesting cases. It takes a lot of work from a lot of different agencies. I hope she pops up somewhere. She'll serve a short time in jail if she does, but it's better than doing something stupid as a long-term solution to a short-term problem. Let's have a look at it. So here's Melissa Caddick. She's taken people's money as investments, and it's been outed as a Ponzi scheme. So up to $40 million she's taken from investors. So what she was doing was she was continually taking money and then paying out people who queried it or whatever along the way, and just taking money from new investors all the time. And that's the way she was doing. This is how a Ponzi scheme works. Now, this is in Sydney. So she's been doing this. If she did it without a financial advisor's license, she's looking at $22,000 fine for that and possibly 10 years in jail. No one gets maximum penalties. Friends have said that she's got rid of her Facebook and Instagram since September and shredded a lot of files. Now, she's gone missing. She left home early in the morning in her jogging gear. 3 days before that, the security system in her house in Sydney, she lived in an affluent area, that went down, the security system, so the police can't see her leaving the building. But all they know is she left in her jogging gear, and she's never been seen since. She had an accountant in Brisbane who they just can't figure out why she had this accountant. It wasn't really, for the money that was being used. It wasn't the sort of accountant that one would engage from experience-wise. There's no allegation about the accountant doing anything wrong. But Melissa has disappeared. Look, I hope she's safe. I hope she's well. But look, if you're going to rip people off $5 million for this one and $6 million that one and, 100,000 this one, you're going to make some enemies too. So this is what Peter Foster's problem was all the way along with his gambling scams. He was ripping off people that could afford to go after him, and they engaged Ken Gamble to go after him. And so he just keeps getting caught every time he does it because Ken's going to catch you if you're a crook. That's the way it goes. So Melissa's missing. They don't know how much money she's got with her or where she put it. I don't think she's the Mr. Big they're making her out to be. I don't think she's dangerous to approach or a menace to people out there, but just something to be aware of. If you're an investor, this happens, you check these investments out before you put money into them. Her scam played out that she would say, and you see it in all the movies, oh, no, we're full up at the moment. We haven't got any opportunities. And she'd leave it for 2 weeks, ring you back and say, oh, look, a vacancy's come up. You'd like to go ahead with it. So, and building on that with Jason's warning about the price of drugs going up and the scams going, I've had 2 phone calls today. One told me I was some federal government agency wanted me to press number 1 on my phone, and if I don't, I was going to be arrested. That was at 9:10 this morning. And the other scam I got around about 11 o'clock today was from Amazon saying my account's going to be deleted if I don't press 1 on my phone. And I don't have an Amazon account. So, look, people... You heard from Jason 3 weeks ago here. Those scams are going to be coming thick and fast, and telephone ones sounds like I haven't had one for 5 years, and I've had 2 today. So thanks for the warning, Jason. It's certainly out there at the moment.
Yeah, look, I really see an increase in this types of activity because, that recent article you just showed about that. the lady that's gone missing doing the Ponzi scheme. I mean, not only does that tell us is a timely reminder of the shonks that exist out there, it's also telling everyone that some people are foolish and will hand over their money. So any prospective fraudsters look at that and say, well, if she can do it, I can do it. And who knows, right, like you say, what her whereabouts are. I believe there is very little information at the moment, so she could be somewhere between being legitimately missing, and I share your sentiments there that, you know, I hope she's okay, not only for her, for also for the victims of the fraud to try and recover some of the funds, or, you know, on a sailing boat to Key Largo or somewhere like that, you know. So
she may be.
Who knows? But you know, anyone wants to know what happens to fraudsters, and that you could do worse things than go on and have a look at a Jordan Belfort interview on YouTube or something like that. But yeah, it's gonna if it sounds too good, then the likelihood is that it is too good. If you know nothing about investing, then you're best following someone like Buffett and his idea or his notion that if you know nothing about investing, throw your money into an index fund and just be happy for small returns.
Yeah, very much so. Well, on a positive note this week, ASIS in New South Wales have released the names of their executive committee, and Australian Security Academy students Ben Dempsitz and Laurie Mugridge are both on the committee. So Ben is the deputy chairperson, Laurie's the treasurer. They're a great industry association at ASIS, and I'm sure Ben and Laurie have contributed to it over the years, and they will continue to contribute it throughout 2021, and I'm a member of that, so it's great to see. So well done, Ben and Laurie. That I'm a big fan of industry associations of all sorts, but I know ASIS, with their international connections, their sharing of information, they're quite a good one. Have you come across them, Jason?
Yeah, I have. And I also got to say that they do have some international qualifications through their certified protection professional, I believe, and their personal security professional, somewhere along that are held in very high regard by potential employers. I also know one of those guys, Kevin Blanche, who's just taken on, I think it's the secretary's position. Terrific guy, comes from a very good security company, Exact Security, and has great integrity and a wealth of knowledge when it comes to security supervision.
Fantastic. No, that's great. So anyway, back to our fraud. Now, the reason we're into the fraud side of this is its governance of the corporation. So if it relates to fraud against the Commonwealth, it's governance in the federal government department about how they monitor the activities, how they regulate it. So this guy, he's in jail for 7 years. His name's Michael Isakidis. He lives across the road, next suburb to me. Right. So what's happened is the federal government's decided that they are going to, under the proceeds of crime, repossess his house that his wife's living in. Now, she didn't do anything wrong. She's living in the house. He's in jail. He's going to be there for quite a while yet.
I suspect his wife is not going to be very happy about the house being sold, Mike.
Not at all, mate. She is slumming it here on Sovereign Island on the Gold Coast, right?
Oh, wow.
And life's pretty tough, but maintenance is an issue at the moment because she's on a Centrelink pension because her husband is basically in jail. Now, the story with her husband and another accounting type guy was they set up this massive scheme, 135 million against the tax office. They basically tried to scam. They got away with 63 million. So he paid cash for his $2.6 million house down in Sovereign Island. So he's gone to jail for that. He's partner in crime, Mr. Dixon, he was sentenced to 11 years, but on appeal they upped that to 14 years. So this is white collar crime, right? They used to have some very, very soft penalties, but this is serious stuff. You go and take on the taxation department, try and rip them off for 63 million. You're going to serve some significant time with some not very pleasant people, and basically that's one that's come out this week. So they're repossessing Michael Isakidis's marital home to pay some of that money back under the proceeds of crime legislation. So this is basically, you can get on the Financial Review website and you can see Operation Bowfighter, which gives you a timeline of how they set up the companies and how they put it all together, what they did. And I think one of the big mistakes they made was they hid some of it in Greece at the time that the Greece government went broke and shut down everybody's bank accounts. So I don't think if the Greek government had any idea that you were up to no good, they could just pocket your money and you got no redress. So not a smart thing. So those guys are really paying for it, and that sovereign island homes now being repossessed for the recovery of the proceeds of crime.
Yeah, Mike, look, I was just going to say, just further on fraud, acknowledging the state of the economy and the ongoing risk with fraud. If you're a company owner, it's important to know what your local law enforcement policy is with respect to the investigations of frauds. Because for in some circumstances, if you're unable to, you've got to remember the threshold of proof that exists in a criminal jurisdiction. That is that you can prove beyond reasonable doubt. So that's no doubt whatsoever that under no other circumstances could it have been anyone else but that person who committed the fraud. And quite often through poor systems, through poor policy, and poor supervision, many frauds are very, very, very difficult to prove. So it's important that you have a fraud policy in place within your company, that you look at your systems and processes and the gaps that exist in your financial pathways through every part of your business. And this is all the way down from the moment someone purchased something for your business to the moment that it goes to a customer of your business, and every pathway in between that, and at least 2 or 3 different people are participating in that, or 2 or 3 different independent people are participating in that process. Otherwise, you're going to be exposed to fraud. So it's important to know that, whilst law enforcement have caught up with some of these guys, it's not always that simple when it comes to fraud investigations. So it's really, really important to have a fraud policy in place and treat fraud just as you would treat any other risk within your business. Diminishing economy as a risk. China putting sanctions on particular exports or imports, etc. So, all of those sorts of things, it's important to take fraud as one of those considerations as well. Make sure you close those gaps, and certainly if you ever need any help doing any of that, then speak to a consultant, whether it's me or whether it's someone else, whoever that may be. Speak to someone if you need some help to know what gaps do exist there, because there can become this dispensation about how your economy within your business works, because that's just the way things are done in our business. Well, that shouldn't be how it is, and wherever there is an opportunity, it will be exploited, because we know that for many of these fraud investigations, these modern fraud investigations, it has in fact been some of the most trusted employees in organisations that have been caught.
That's right. Now, they might argue later on that there was no process, policy or procedure in place, or that was the way things are done. And the perfect example of what Jason's just talking about is John Nagle at iCare. Now, he's resigned from his job over a procurement issue where his wife was paid $750 a day to conduct training on behalf of iCare. I don't know if his wife had a nationally recognised registered training organisation. I don't know if she had any training qualifications. I don't know what training I have no idea. But iCare have said it's going to take a year to investigate this matter to see if it was fraud or if it was just no procurement rules in place, or who avoided the procurement rules or how this came about. This was just one of many different procurement issues that, as Jason pointed out, how when you buy it, that's when you've got to check it. It wasn't checked. So $800,000 a day. He was the chief executive officer of iCare, and his wife was paid, $800,000 over 3 years. She was paid to conduct training for the department her husband was CEO of. So this is a major, it's going to take a year to investigate. That's a lot of resources of ICAC or some investigation organisation, accounting firm engaged to do it. And at the end of it, they're going to say, this was not fraud, or this was fraud, or whatever. So one of the most difficult things we have in Jason and my role is when this happened, the person that does it is usually the most popular, most respected person in the organisation, and the whole place is flat. They liked that lady, they liked that guy, and they've been sacked because of a procurement issue or a policy process or procedure was not adhered to. And now that we've got to rebuild and move forward. And that's exactly what iCare are doing. So they have advertised basically a whole bunch of jobs like head of risk and compliance business partnering. So they've got a job there. You can see that on Seek. And in that role, it says here, leading the team to provide business partnering services to support the business with incident management, breach identification and assessment, compliance obligations and identification of management of conflicts of interest, and anti-fraud and corruption. So that's a job they've advertised in relation to that. But not only that, they've got a general manager of compliance. This is what we talk about in this program, governance and compliance. This has been advertised now. So the CEO isn't the person who has all the say in it. This person is going to have a say in it with this person now, and that's how iCare have responded. But it's not only those. If you get on the iCare website, you'll see they want a risk analyst, the business partner we talked about, general manager of compliance, and head of risk compliance and business partnering. Now, all of that has come as a result of this man. So
yeah, the whole mandate for iCare is to care for people, and there's not those positions there. There's not too much caring taking place for people. It's just looking after the back end of the business, and a lot of people in their own companies and that too. Their mandate is to look after people's health or look after this. So quite often, and that these types of things and that get missed within normal business. It's important to note with fraud too, Mike. I might just add, mate, and I apologise because I know we're starting to go over time, but I just wanted to say that a dishonest act on its own does not necessarily mean that it is a fraud. Criminal fraud has two key components, and those two key components are dishonesty and deception. You can't have one without the other when it comes to the criminal threshold of proof for fraud, all right? There needs to be some dishonesty and there needs to be deception. So in these circumstances, if it was something that someone should have known about to intervene and they didn't intervene, then all of a sudden there's this implied consent that it was okay to engage his wife on $750 a day. And therefore, your whole motives for 1 year of investigation to prove fraud may not even be there in the first place.
Yeah, and the can of worms that's opened up is the minister responsible. He was heading to be the next premier. He's not now. That's gone. Yeah. So that's on his shift. That's happened, right? And that's gone. And it was all brought about by Adele Ferguson and the ABC and some other newspaper investigative journalists as well. So you can get on the ABC website and you can see the program there, and it's under classics in the middle. And Adele Ferguson, a very brave lady to expose that. Just while you're on that website, and I cannot recommend it highly enough, one of the program on Four Corners that actually inspired me to become a licensed private investigator, that you can actually see that program under classics on the Four Corners website. And it's about Chris Masters' investigation into the Moonlight State in 1987 in Queensland. In Queensland in 1987, you couldn't walk down the street as a group of three people. You would have been arrested because you would have been seen to be protesting as part of a protest. That's how it was back then. You could be arrested for anything in Queensland under Joe back then. If you voted in an election, 3 votes went under a gerrymander process to someone in the country. Right? It was worse than what they're saying about the USA now. If you really want to see some good TV viewing when it's raining and you can't get outside on the weekend and you're a risk manager or an investigator, have a look on the ABC website under that Classics program for Four Corners and watch the Moonlight State. Really worth it. There are lots and lots of jobs out there, people. This one's a retail compliance risk manager job. This one's an intelligence officer job in Victoria. Austrac are looking for anti-money laundering professionals. The Centrelink have come out and said basically that their tender has been awarded for the recovery of debts. This has replaced robo-debt. So 3 mercantile agent companies have replaced robo-debt. Now, look, I'm fully supportive of this. They're recovery money that's been paid to people that didn't deserve it. Now, I don't think they should be chasing single mums with 4 kids who have been victims of violence and domestic violence and that sort of thing. I think they really should be chasing, the people out there that have been ripping off the national disability insurance service, like this guy and this lady in Melbourne and this bunch of crooks who set up a childcare agency. They're out there. They're out there in their thousands, and they're getting 1.5 million, 3 million. That's what I'd like to see. The debt recovery, the people chasing them and getting the money out of them. There's more
A current affair have got enough material for the next 10 years. That's
just there, yeah. And this is job of the week, Jason. You and I both like to have this job. Basically, it means you get into the footy and get into the cricket free. It's down in Melbourne. It's at the Melbourne Cricket Club, the MCC. It's the most up-itself organisation in Victoria. So this is for the elite people who can get into the MCC as a member and go and watch the cricket and drink champagne and eat cucumber sandwiches. You can't get in there in your beanie and your footy scarf, but they want 2 investigators. So that's a really great job. Anyone that knows their way around risk and investigation, get onto that and apply for it. You'll really make some good contacts. They're great people at the MCC, as much as I like to take it out of them. That's our program for today, Jason. Thanks for giving up some of that valuable time, mate. I don't want to hold you up, but I'll just play our outro and then I'll have a little quick chat with you, okay, mate?
No problem.
Thanks for watching, people. We really appreciate that. Jason, I'll see you next week. We'll just go out with our certificate for him. Okay, well, that's it, folks. I'll turn it off. See you next week.